Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about going live with your API project. I'm logged into my Ubuntu VM, so why don't you go ahead and do that too. We'll do everything here through the Ubuntu VM. I think that makes the most sense. So log into your Ubuntu VM and then go to PHP My Admin for your Ubuntu VM. And then make sure you've chosen your API dev database. Okay, not the test one, but the dev one. That's what we're going to start with here. So what we need to do is export this database, and then later on we'll import it onto the live server. So here, again, make sure that you're working in the right database. It should say API dev DB right up here. And then once you get there, click on the export tab right there. Now, normally we could just hit go and it would download a SQL file that would basically have everything from our database into it, but I just want to tweak this just a little bit. So to customize it, check this radio button right there to choose custom settings. And this isn't a huge deal and it may not even be necessary, but I want to show it to you anyways. Scroll down here and you'll see a bunch of choices. What we're looking for is this checkbox. It says add drop table. I'll show you what this is going to do in a second, but go ahead and check that box, and what that will do is it will add drop statements before it creates tables. And that's kind of nice because sometimes if you make a mistake and you need to wipe out the live database, you want to make sure these drop statements are in there. So I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But once you check that box right there, you can scroll down and hit the go button. Okay, now that's going to download a SQL file that we'll use later, and we'll actually import that SQL file into our live database. Okay, so that's the first step here. Next, you're going to want to log into cPanel. So go log into cPanel. I'm assuming you guys are mostly using your Western hosting, but some of you might be on QTH. I've got instructions for all this for QTH as well. Okay, so here's the cPanel homepage. If you don't know how to log in here, you need to go find the email that you got when you signed up. That'll have the link and your login information. Once you log in, you'll end up here at cPanel. And then you want to scroll down and click on MySQL Databases. So I'm going to click that, and we need to create a new database. So right here, type in just API. Now, the name of the database is going to include some prefix. Yours is going to be different than mine. But anyways, just type in API, but note that it's going to create the name of the database is going to have your prefix too, which is different than mine. Anyways, type in API here and then click the Create Database button. Okay, and now, so it says that it created the database, and here's the name of it, including the prefix. And again, your prefix is going to be different than mine. We need to copy the name of this database. So go ahead and copy that. We're going to need this later. So copy that, and then let's open up a text file here. If you don't have the text editor in your favorites here, you can open it by clicking on the application or the waffle icon, and then you can just do a search for text. Okay, and you should see the text editor. So go ahead and open up the text editor. This is basically Notepad. Okay, there we go. Here it should open up a new file right here. Paste that database name in there. We're going to need that later. Okay, so keep this file handy throughout this video because you're going to need it. All right, now go back to cPanel and click the Go Back button. We've created a database, but what we want to do now is create a login for that database. So if you scroll down on this screen, you should see a section to add a new user. Here, we're going to type in a username of API_user. You could name this whatever you want, but just so that we're all on the same page, I think we should all call it API_user. And again, it's going to get a prefix, so you'll see that in a second here. Now go ahead and set up a password. I'm going to use the password generator. And then, so obviously you guys can see my password. I'm going to change it later, but you're going to want to copy it. And then you have to check this box saying that, yes, I've copied this password. And then you can go ahead and click use password. But make sure you go back to your text file that we opened up a minute ago and paste that password in there. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and just paste the password in there. We'll need that later. Okay. Then I can go back to cPanel and hit the create user button. I don't think I need to save this here, so I'm going to just click escape here. Okay, you can see here it says you have successfully created a user, and here's the username. So it's got that prefix that I was telling you about. That's going to be different for everybody. We're going to need this username too, so copy that and paste it into your text editor file. All right, so there's 3 important pieces of information that we're collecting here. The database name, the password, and the user account that's going to log in. All right. Okay, so we're going to put these bits of information into our config file. But before we do, there's another thing we have to do in cPanel. So if you go back to the cPanel, hit the go back button here, and it'll take you back to this screen. If you scroll down, you'll find a section called Add User to Database. So you choose a user, and then you choose the database that you want to add them to. It's probably going to default to the right ones for you, but just make sure that the user selected in this drop-down is the one we just created. And then for the database drop-down, make sure that it's the database that we just created. So you probably won't have to change those, but if you've been creating a bunch of stuff, if you've got other databases, maybe you'll see those choices. Okay, at that point, once you get these both set right to the right user and the right database, click the add button here. Okay, and now what this screen is telling you to do is we have to assign the permissions for this user to this database. So the user, we're only doing selects, inserts, updates, and maybe some of you are doing deletes too. So those are the things that we want to check here. Those are the CRUD operations that this user account is going to be doing. So I'll check delete there, although some of you may not need it. You can just check it anyways. We're going to be doing select statements. We're going to be doing update statements, and we're also going to be doing insert statements. So these are the things that this user can do in the database. We don't want them to be able to drop tables or other stuff like that. We just want to limit it to the things that they're going to be able to do through our API. Okay, so check those 4 boxes and then hit Make Changes, the Make Changes button. Okay, and now you can see here it says that we've successfully assigned this user to the database. Okay, so we're all set over here. Now at this point, we can go ahead and import the database that we exported from our Ubuntu VM. So here in cPanel, click this link to get back to the home page. Click that Tools link. And what we're going to do now is scroll down until you see the icon for, or the link for phpMyAdmin. So go ahead and click on that. Now this will look familiar to you because you've been using this all semester. And you should see your new database right there. Yours is going to have a different name than mine. But go ahead and click on that. And then, so make sure you're in the right database. It's your API database. And then choose import here. Okay, now here is where you want to click the browse button and find that SQL file that we downloaded at the beginning. Here's mine. It was in my downloads folder. I'll just hit select right here. And once you select it, once you get it in there, you need to click the import button down at the bottom. Okay, now hopefully you won't have any errors, and I can see that now this database has a users table and a user roles table, and you're going to see your other tables there too. Okay, so the database is all set up on the live server right now, and we've got a user account with a password that we can use to connect to it from our API project. So the next step is to open up VS Code and go into your config file for your API project. So here I'm in the config file, and you'll find an if statement around line 9. And now what this has is the first part of the if statement is for when you're on localhost. That's our dev environment. So that's when we're running everything on our Ubuntu VM. But there's an else that goes with this if statement. So scroll down to the else portion, which is around line 29. Okay, these are going to be the settings for the live environment. So you'll see these constants: db host, db user, db password, and db name. You can leave the db host. Now, I want to make sure we're very clear. We're in the production settings here. We're setting this up for the production environment, the live environment. Okay, so make sure you're in the else block. That's the production settings. You want to leave the db host to localhost. Now, the reason why it's localhost on our live server is because the MySQL server is on the same server. So anyways, the MySQL server is on the same server as the Apache server. So the Apache server is going to be using PHP code to connect to the database. Both servers are on the same machine, so we just leave the host at localhost right here, even though it's the live environment. Okay, the rest of these, the DB user, password, and name, you need to paste these in from your text editor file right here. So here, the first thing we had was the database name. So I'll copy that first line right there, and I'll find the database name constant right there, and I'll replace those X's with the real database name. Then I'm going to grab the password, so I'll copy that, and then go back to VS Code and paste that in for the DB password constant. Okay, and then the last one was the user account. So here is the user account that we created. Copy that and paste that into the DB user constant. There we go. Okay, and then make sure you save your changes here. All right. Now we're ready to upload all of our files to the live server. Some of you might be using FileZilla to connect to your live server, and some of you aren't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can do it through cPanel. Now this is kind of clunky, but anyways, it'll work, and you don't need to have FileZilla installed and configured in order to do it. So I think this will be the way we do it here. Oh, by the way, I'm just looking, you may want to also set the site admin constant to your email address, because remember, whenever errors occur on the live server, you're going to get an email. So yes, don't forget to replace that constant site admin email with your email address. Okay, so now we need to zip up the files so we can upload them to the server. I'm going to use, where is it here? If you, up here at the top, here's the file explorer that we've been using for Ubuntu. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go into the doc root directory. So to get there, I start by clicking other locations, and then computer, and then go into the var folder, and then the www folder. Here's the doc root directory. Here's our project in the API folder. Double click on that. Now, some of you, a couple things here. I've already zipped everything up, so I'm just going to delete that zip file because I was practicing. Okay, and now some of you may not be seeing the hidden files. Like, you might just be seeing the stuff that's not hidden. If you want, we want to show the hidden files because we need to see this one right here. So to do that, you can click on this button and then check this checkbox to show the hidden files. And then you should see the Git folder and then the htaccess file. We need that. Okay. What we need to upload to our server is the includes folder. So go ahead and select the includes folder. That's got all of our classes in it. And then we also need to include the index page. That's our home page. So I'm holding down the control button and I'm gonna select that. And then we also need to select our htaccess file because that is what's redirecting all the requests to index.php. Okay, so those are the three files that we need to upload to our live server. You don't need the test folder and you don't need your Git repository up there either. Okay, so once you get those three files selected, right click and choose compress and name the zip file API. Okay, so and then hit the create button. So what you're going to end up with here is a folder called api.zip, and we're going to upload that to the live server. Okay, so I don't know if you've got FileZilla installed, so I'm not going to use that, but I'll show you that you can actually use cPanel to upload stuff. It's clunky and it's kind of difficult to use, but it's nice if you don't want to install and configure FileZilla. So if I go back to the browser up here, I gotta click in here. There we go. And I want to go back to the cPanel, and here's so I'm at the cPanel homepage. And then here we will look for File Manager. I think it's near the top somewhere. I have to scroll up. There we go. Here's File Manager. Okay, so you can transfer files using this tool, but it's a little bit clunky. Okay, so right here you should see your home folder. Now we want to step into the public HTML folder. So scroll down until you find that, and now you have to double click on this to open it. I think you have to double click on the icon next to the public HTML folder. Okay, there you go. And here is where we want to upload our API zip folder. So you can't upload a whole bunch of files at once. You have to zip them up to use this file manager. So it's a little bit clunky. But here what we want to do is choose the upload button. And then I want to select the zip file. So I'll navigate to that. Here it is. And then I'll go ahead and hit select here. Okay. And let's see, what do I do next? Oh, okay, so it's uploaded here, and I'll just click the go back. Okay, now you should see your zip file in your public HTML folder. Here you need to click on it, and then there's supposed to be a way to extract it. So click on the zip file and choose extract. Okay, and we want to actually extract these into an API folder. So we want to make sure that we add /API here so that the extracted files end up in an API folder. So I'm going to add that to this after the slash that comes after public HTML, and then I'll hit extract files here, and then it shows me the extraction results. I'll just close that. And now I might have to refresh this. Let's see, is there a refresh here so I can see it? Where's the refresh? Okay, I don't, am I missing it? But anyways, if I want to, yeah, I need to refresh this. Where's the refresh button? I guess one way I can do it is just step into another folder and then step back up. So, okay, so that was kind of clunky, but anyways, in order to see it, I didn't see a refresh button. Oh, there it is. That's what I should have pressed, but you should have an API folder now. And if you open it up, you'll see the files. All right, so now that I've created the database on the live server and configured my project to connect to the live database and copied my files up to the live server, we're live. So what I'm going to do now is test, make a bunch of requests in Postman to test the live server. So for this step here, we'll go ahead and click this plus sign here in Postman and create a new blank collection. And let's just call it API Live, like that. Okay, and now the first request that I want to do is going to be a login request, because remember, once we've got all the security measures in place, you can't do anything without logging in first. So what I'll do here is, with my new collection for the live site, I'll click on the ellipse there and I'll add a request and I'll call it login. So I'll just type login here. Now that's going to be a post request because we have to send some information to the server. Now the URL here, I'm gonna, just to be safe, I'm gonna set the URL to this HTTPS. We should really be using HTTPS to make all these requests, especially if we're sending passwords. So I'm gonna set it up like that, and then I'm gonna include the www and then my domain name. Yours is gonna be different, but mine is webcoder.club, like that. And then that's going to give us the server name. From there, we want to go into the API folder, and then we're going to do a login request. So that's going to be my URL. I need to add a body to this request. And if you remember, and when you do that, you have to set this drop down to raw. And then here's where we can put the JSON string that's going to get sent to the server in the body of the request. So if you remember, that's going to be an object that has an email property and a password property. So I got my curly braces in place there. I'm going to try and pump this up so you can see it a little bit bigger. There we go. And then now in JSON, you have to put quotation marks around the property name. So I'll put, there we go. And now Jane@doe.com is probably what we want to use. Jane is an admin. And so I'm going to use that for the email address. Okay, and then I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to add a password property. And everyone's password should be test. Okay, I think I've done everything here to configure this post request. I will go ahead and send it. Okay, I got a status of 200 back, so that looks good. I want to shrink this now again. Okay, and here I can see the body of the response. Looks like I was able to authenticate. Now remember, that's going to go ahead and set the session ID cookie. So I can make any requests that I make from here on out to this server. It's going to include the cookie, and I'm logged in. Okay, so to finish off this whole project is you're going to want to recreate all your requests to your live server and make sure they all work. So that's the final piece to know that the live server is working. We want to test all the URLs in Postman against the live server. All right, that shall do it.